You're watching Adam the Bull on the Bet Rivers Network.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. If you're not using the Bet Rivers app by now, I have no clue what you're doing. Coming up this week, I'll have a big game parlay for you. I got a 2-leg parlay that I love in the game between the Chiefs and the Eagles. So check it out on our social media at Bet Rivers, the Bet Rivers app, or betrivers.com. We've got you covered. So the Myles Garrett saga is just getting started. Obviously, after the news broke on Monday that he was requesting a trade, going as far as to put out a letter. We did a podcast Monday, talked about it again yesterday on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. And here I am again because there's so much to unpack with this situation that as much as I've talked about this situation already, there's still a lot to hit on. First of all, just thinking about and getting more information. So the Browns have known basically since the end of the year that Myles Garrett wanted to be traded. Now, Myles Garrett chose this week to say it publicly because obviously the season ended a month ago, so it stayed under wraps for a month. In fact, there was a feeling in town that whatever Andrew Berry or Kevin Stefanski had said to Myles Garrett had maybe convinced him to not want to be traded out. I think we all kind of went with that because we hadn't heard about a trade request, when ultimately the Browns have known this for weeks. So what changed? And what convinced Myles Garrett to make the public, not only make a public statement, but do it in a way that basically humiliates the general manager of the Browns, Andrew Berry? What happened is the Browns were not willing to trade him. The Browns, who make no declarative statements, it seems, ever, spoke twice in the last month, Andrew Berry did, that the Browns would not, unequivocally, would not trade Myles Garrett. That they, in fact, would not listen to offers even, which honestly makes no sense. I don't care how good a player is. You always have to be willing to listen because you never know. I know I shouldn't dwell on that because I get what he's saying. But if I'm a general manager team, I'll listen to any offer on any player, even if it's a player that I would never trade. And Myles Garrett, as great as he is, should not be on that list. There's probably like 4 guys on that list. And they're all quarterbacks. But even for those guys, I would listen. I'm not going to trade one of those guys, but I would listen because you never know what information you could find out in that conversation that could lead to a trade somewhere else. That being said, the Browns were, or Andrew Berry specifically, said he's not trading Myles Garrett, said it at the end of the season in his postseason press conference the week after the season. And then again last week, he said it once again, even more definitively than he had the first time when he did say it definitively. This time he doubled, he said the part about wouldn't even listen to calls. And he said the part about Myles Garrett's going to go from Cleveland to Canton. And that's where you have what Myles Garrett says in his statement. Well, it's not about going from Cleveland to Canton. It's going from Cleveland to Super Bowl to the Canton. So while Andrew Berry said what he said last week in his mind as a compliment to Myles Garrett and a commitment to Myles Garrett, which it was. It was a commitment. It was a compliment. There's no doubt about it. But Myles Garrett did not take it that way. Because in his mind, he's saying, well, I have other goals to accomplish. And I can't accomplish the goals on this team. I do not believe in the general manager. And you could argue he's also saying he doesn't believe in the head coach. And although I have wobbled back and forth on my thoughts on Kevin Stefanski in the last couple of months, I could understand, certainly because I did, understand why there would be a loss in confidence in Kevin Stefanski, and absolutely understand why there would be a loss or no confidence ever in Andrew Berry. Andrew Berry has done a subpar job as the general manager of the Browns. There is absolutely no denying that. I think Kevin Stefanski's done an okay job as head coach of the Browns. That can be argued. You could say worse, you could say better. I think it's borderline. I changed my mind because I thought with more control this year that Kevin Stefanski could be the better coach that we've seen at times. But I'm not completely convinced. How could I? If I was completely convinced, I wouldn't be wishy-washy. You folks know me. I'm not wishy-washy about much, but I have been about Kevin Stefanski. But I haven't been about Andrew Berry. And the only reason in the end I didn't get on the soapbox to fire him when I decided, hey, okay, stick with Stefanski is just because it seems like they're a team. But unless Kevin Stefanski, and even if this happened, I don't know that it would change my mind at this point. But unless Kevin Stefanski said to Jimmy Haslam, hey, listen, we can't fire Andrew Berry. He's my guy. We're partners. Unless that happened, I would let Andrew Berry go. To me, both had to be considered for being fired. And certainly when Myles Garrett, your best player, your most impactful player in the last 8 years, your future Hall of Fame player, humiliates your general manager with a statement saying he wants to leave the team. If I were Jimmy Haslam, that might be the final straw that pushed me over the top. There is a debate about how good a job Kevin Stefanski's done. I think the debate is between a 4 and a 7. With Andrew Berry, I don't think there's any debate that he's been even average. None. To me. I don't see it. Andrew Berry's done a poor job with the draft. Deshaun Watson's on his record. We'll never know for sure who pushed for that trade the most. And you're all hypocrites if you say you didn't want it, because most people did. I certainly did. I'm not taking anybody else with me. I certainly would have made that trade for Deshaun Watson. It was a no-brainer at the time. At the time, he was a far better quarterback than Baker Mayfield. There was no debate there. Obviously not the case anymore. But that's on his record. It's not my job. It's not your job to make sure we have all the information and we know what a guy's mental state is when we make a trade. It's his job. He's the GM, and he fucked it up. No doubt. There's no debating that. So he spent 3 first-round picks on a guy that was shot, and he should have had more of a clue. Certainly more than we knew. He used a first-round pick on Jedrick Wills. The guy's a low-tier starter. A first-round pick on Greg Newsome. Guy's a low-tier starter. The Browns have their best player under 25 is Martin Emerson, who's a nice player, decent, solid player. That's their best player under 25. Again, you look at the best players on this team, for the most part, they're 28 and older. All your good offensive linemen, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, Jerry Jeudy's 25. I got to double check Denzel. Denzel will be 28 at the start of the season. Turned to 28 in April. David Njoku will be 29 at the start of the season. Almost every good player on the Browns, and they have some good players, don't get me wrong, it's not like there's no talent here, but almost every good player on the Browns is 28 and older. Your only your only players on offense. In fact, Jerry Jeudy is your only player on offense that I can think of that's good, that you know is a good player. Not great, good. That's under 20 or will be under 29 when the season starts. That's it. Your offensive lineman, your star, I guess DeJuan Jones, but I don't know what he is. Your other offensive linemen are older than that. Njoku, as I just said, will turn 29 before the season. I guess I got to double check Wyatt Teller. I think he's 29. Yeah, he's 30. The other your starting offensive linemen besides DeJuan Jones, potentially, all 28 or older, 29 or older. David Njoku, 29 and older. You got no running back. All right, got Jerome Ford. Okay, he's a number 2 back. He's younger. But look how little talent you have. On the defensive side, you got JOK, but he's injured. Michael Hall has some potential. This team has screwed up the draft terribly in the last 5 years. There's no doubt about it. And if that doesn't turn around immediately, we talk about, the Browns are going to suck forever. Well, they don't have to suck forever. If they start hitting in the draft, obviously they got to get a quarterback at some point. It may happen this year. It may happen next year. I don't know. It may never happen. They may keep getting it wrong. But it can always be turned around quickly with a quarterback and good drafting overall. But at this point, how do I have any faith that Andrew Berry can get it right? What has he done? When he took over, the Browns had cap space. They had draft picks. They had a number of good players in their prime or early prime, and they don't now. They got a normal amount of draft picks, a couple extras in the middle this year. Nothing crazy. And almost no good young players in their prime, or at least no good players in their early prime. And if you trade Myles Garrett, yeah, okay, which is tricky, and it's going to be very tricky. This is not going to be easy to trade him. And if the Browns are adamant about not trading him, I've heard a number of people. My guy Nick Wilson, I heard there was somebody else I saw online. I can't think who it was, saying this is going to be bad PR for the Browns if they try to go to war with Myles Garrett. But you know what? Does that matter? Could the Browns' PR be any worse? I'm torn because I think it's better in the long term for the franchise probably to trade Myles Garrett. But he's still a great player. It totally screws up your cap for the next year or two with him gone. And you never want to be forced by a player to trade him. It's just not good. And ultimately, if the Browns stand by it and say, hey, we're not trading you. The only thing Myles Garrett can do is sit out. And I just doubt he would do that. I can't imagine a player that good in the prime of his career. And he's still in the prime, late prime, but he's in his prime. I just can't imagine Myles Garrett's going to sit out. So even though I've said that I think, if the Browns could get a haul, it makes sense. If they don't want to trade him, then they shouldn't. They shouldn't let themselves be forced, because the only thing Myles Garrett can't force a trade. Even if he sits out, well, okay. I mean, the Browns are going to be probably bad next year anyway, so they won 3 with him. They can win 3 without him. If the Browns trade Myles Garrett, there's over $30 million in dead cap if they trade him before June 1st. If they trade him after June 1st, or if they trade him before June 1st, it's over $30 million dead cap for Myles Garrett for this upcoming season's 2025 cap, which puts them in terrible shape, obviously. If they wait till after June 1st to trade him, they could split it up between the 25 and 26 season. However, I was listening to our Jack Duff in there, who's a good cap guy, and he was talking. He reminded me that the Browns have that Myles Garrett's got a roster bonus or some sort of bonus coming his way early March, right before free agency starts. So to wait to June 1st, you'd have to pay him this $5 million bonus, and if you're going to trade him, you don't want to pay him that bonus. So the Browns it's really a terrible spot to be in. Your best player doesn't want to play for your team. You don't want to trade him. And even if you were willing to, it hurts the team in the short run to trade Myles Garrett. Now, if you trade Myles Garrett, unless you nail the next great quarterback, next year, it's not going to matter because you're not going to be good anyway. And the reality is that even, let's say the Browns at 2 take Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, and that guy's the next Jaden Daniels. I know nobody believes that, but who the hell knows? Until they play, we don't know. Let's say that's the case. Let's say they do hit. Let's say it's a win. I know if it seems impossible for the Browns. But let's say it all goes well with that draft pick. Even still, they're not winning the Super Bowl next year. A rookie quarterback, I don't care how good he is, how far are you going in the AFC? Jaden Daniels had a great year. They made the NFC Championship, extremely impressive. The NFC is much weaker top to bottom. And that's beyond the odds of this player being anywhere close to Jaden Daniels, at least in year 1. So this story, it's not, even if the Browns do end up trading Myles Garrett, I don't think it's happening anytime soon. I think it's going to happen a month from now, if it does, if at all. And so this story will be hanging over the Browns. And if they don't trade him by the draft, this story doesn't go away until Myles Garrett is traded or signs an extension. That's it. This story, the Browns could pay that bonus in early March. They could say every week they're not going to trade him. They could not trade him before the draft. They could not trade him before training camp. There's only 2 ways this story goes away. Myles Garrett's traded or he signs a massive extension. Until either of those things happen, and one of them will happen at some point, most likely, the only other option, the only way one of those things doesn't happen before the season is if Myles Garrett is absolutely intent on not signing an extension no matter what the money is, and the Browns are absolutely set in not trading him no matter what the return is, and then it leads to a holdout. But even then, even if that happens, let's say we get to that point, let's say the season starts, Myles Garrett's holding out, the Browns refuse to trade him. Even then, the story doesn't go away. This story will linger on this team until one of those 2 things happen. That's the only way this story stops, is with a trade or a massive extension. And like I said, none of us have any idea whether or not Myles Garrett ultimately would be willing to sign a massive extension. Guys have said they wanted to be traded before and then ultimately signed. And maybe the Browns make Myles Garrett such a ridiculous offer that he can't say no. I have no idea. I have no idea if the Browns would do that, although I think they would. I have no idea if Myles Garrett would accept that. I really don't. I don't have any feel whatsoever. Listen, I do know Myles Garrett wants to be I say I do know Myles Garrett wants to be traded, as if you folks don't know that. We all know that. He is I don't think this is just about money. I really don't. I think in fact, I don't think it's about money at all. I think he wants to be traded. I think he wants to be gone. But ultimately, can they make money talk? Is that possible? Sure. When I say it's not about money, I'm saying I don't think he's asking for this trade because they haven't offered him a fair extension. I think maybe there's some thought that he asked for this trade because the Browns in negotiations on a new contract, because he's got 2 years left on a 5-year, $125 million deal, based on current standards, is not enough. He's the best pass rusher in the league. He's not the highest paid pass rusher in the league. So obviously, if he does get traded, he's going to want to be the highest. Either way, whether he gets traded or not, he wants to be the highest paid pass rusher. The question is there a price that would change his mind about wanting to be traded? But I don't think we're looking at a scenario where the Browns made him an offer. He didn't think it was good enough, so he demanded a trade because of that. I don't think that has anything to do with his reasoning for wanting to be traded. But I'll just throw it out there. Is there a possibility that the Browns could make an offer so good that he would change his mind? I guess that's possible, but I have no idea. He seems pretty steadfast on wanting to be out of here. Real quick, Cavs with a very disheartening performance. I don't want to read too much into the regular season NBA. For years, I've said, regular season doesn't matter. But what was so disheartening about the game yesterday was the way Evan Mobley played. I expected Evan Mobley to. I said yesterday on UCSS that Evan Mobley was the X factor. If he played well, they'd win. If he didn't, they'd lose. That's exactly what happened. Donovan Mitchell had 31 points. Darius Garland had 25, had a big second half. Jarrett Allen was great, 17 points, 18 rebounds. But Evan Mobley no-showed. He looked scared. He looked kind of like the guy we saw last year at times. There was no authority. There was hesitation in all his shots. 3 of 14 from the field? I mean, when you're an outside shooter, okay, but like he was 3 of 10. I mean, he was 0 for 4 for 3, but he 3 for 10 inside the three-point line, and most of his inside the three-point line shots are in the paint. 7 points, 5 boards, 2 assists. Horrible. Just an absolutely dreadful performance by Evan Mobley. And the Cavs, they kept fighting to stay in there, but man, when the Celtics are healthy like they are now, they played 9 players. And when they're healthy, they feel like a nearly impossible team to beat. That starting lineup is just ridiculous. And that's with, and what's funny is, it is Porzingis and Tatum were 14 for 43 from the field. That's under 33%. And the Celtics still won by 7 points. So, it was a disheartening loss. It really was. Cavs back in action tonight, back-to-back. They're in Detroit tonight, playing JB and the Pistons. Cavs start the day, still with the best record in basketball at 40-10. Oh, sorry. No, I'm wrong. Technically, Oklahoma City's got a better winning percentage at 39-9. Cavs second at 40-10. Celtics only 4.5 back. It's still 5. It's 5 in the loss column, but right now the Celtics have the season tiebreaker. So divisions, the top seed's not set in stone. Still think they probably win the division. You got 32 games left, but it's a lot of time. See what happens. All right, thanks everybody for joining me today. Thanks to Z and Max for producing. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening. On Thursday, of course, we'll do the live show at 2 p.m. As always, Dustin and I will be on a Bull and Fox edition of the Bullpen. We'll make Super Bowl predictions. We'll get Dustin's thoughts on Myles Garrett situation. I'm sure there'll be more things to talk about, Browns related, and we'll have the Cavs Pistons game to talk about as well. Until then, we'll talk to you next time. Where else but right here in the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. See you, everybody.